morning sun where the flowers bloom, colors burst like a painter's dream come true. Roses red and violets blue, every petal whispers something new. From tiny seeds to trees so grand, every leaf and bird, it's all at hand. Hello, hello plant, welcome to the show, where every flower tells a story. Watch them grow. Hello, hello plant, in every shade and hue, for every heart and every hand, we've got something for you. Indoor greens and outdoor scenes, design your space, let your garden dreams glide. Personal touch with our garden design, free sessions to blend within your budget line. Alright. From tiny seeds to trees so grand, every leaf and bird, it's all at hand. Hello, hello plant, welcome to the show, where every flower tells a story. Watch them grow. Hello, hello plant, in every shade and hue, for every heart and every hand, we've got something for you. Now everybody, let's say hello, 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 hello.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to one of our lives. We got a really fun topic today, talking all about hydrangeas and just everything you need to know about it. We're covering quite a bit of ground, so if you love hydrangeas, then this is the live for you. So how this works is Chris is going to chat to you about all things hydrangeas. We're going to cover quite a few topics. And if you find that you have any questions along the way, please do comment it below, and we're going to dedicate some time at the end to answer all your questions. So just comment them as they come up and we will get to it at the end. I hope everyone is doing great today. How are you doing today, Chris?
Great, thanks.
Amazing. Well,
I'm excited about doing hydrangeas.
Yeah.
It's something that's close to my heart. I've got a few stories to tell about my childhood and hydrangeas. So.
Amazing, yeah, and hydrangeas are such beautiful flowers. So we're going to get right into it because we've got a lot of ground to cover. So take it away, Chris.
Right, okay. So hydrangea, when I was a kid, they were the height of fashion, and then they went completely out of fashion, and nobody bought a hydrangea out of the nursery for years. And now people are rediscovering hydrangea, and they're an amazing plant. They're a plant that produces lots of flowers, lots of colours, but they're also a little bit of a misunderstood plant. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to tell you about the different types of hydrangea and really give you some of the tricks of the trade and some of the ins and outs so that you could actually achieve what you want to achieve with hydrangea, and also how you can find out a little bit more about hydrangea than what you already know. Now, first of all, probably the biggest, or the things that you could know about hydrangea that are most important are, first of all, that hydrangeas love water. So the key to growing hydrangea, and they love a bit of fertilizer, they love a bit of chicken manure, a bit of whatever you've got. So they love a bit of fertilizer, and they love water, and most hydrangeas don't like hot afternoon sun. So morning sun, afternoon shade, dappled shade, deep shade, whatever, but try and keep them out of the hot afternoon sun. There's the general rules, but there's some exceptions to that. And most hydrangeas are deciduous. That means that they go bare in the winter, and they're leafy and green and lush in the summer, and they tend to flower mid-spring and then flower right through till autumn. And the flowers go through colour transitions. But the other thing to know about hydrangea, I've got people coming here saying, oh look, I must have a blue hydrangea, I must have a pink hydrangea, and we try and help them, but it's hard because what people don't understand is that it's a bit like asking for basically hydrangeas are not, there's no such thing as a blue hydrangea, and there's no such thing as a pink hydrangea, or a red hydrangea, or a purple hydrangea, whatever. Basically, what you've got is that hydrangeas are affected by pH. So if you have an alkaline soil, that soil with lots of lime in it, if you bought a hydrangea here, and it might have blue flowers on it, if you took it home and planted it in a high pH soil, say a pH of 9 or 7.5 or 8, 9, something like that, sort of at the high end of the pHs, that blue hydrangea is going to be, if it's a light blue hydrangea, it'll become a pink hydrangea, and if it's a dark blue hydrangea, it'll become a sort of a dark red or purple hydrangea. So basically, and it's the same thing, if you came in here and bought a red hydrangea and you took it to a spot where the soil's nice and acidic, you can, your red hydrangea is going to turn out to, if it's a dark red, it'll be a dark blue. If it's a light red, it'll be a light blue, you know? So basically, hydrangeas are affected by the pH of the soil. And now the good thing about that is that you can buy stuff to make your hydrangeas blue. So that if you're in it, like if you walk around your neighbourhood and you see that all the hydrangeas are sort of pinks and reds and purple and dark sort of maroni colours, then what you could know is that your district where you are is a high pH, and that if you were to buy a hydrangea, it's going to go to that side. But if you walk around your neighbourhood and you find that all the hydrangeas are soft blues and dark blues and maybe a little bit of purple, what you've got there is you've got a low pH or acidic soil, and that's how your hydrangea will naturally tend to go, with the exception being that your white hydrangea is white no matter what, because it doesn't get affected. So, but basically pink hydrangeas become pale blue, red hydrangeas become dark blue or sort of purpley colours. So that's how with pH, but you can control that. So a good dose of lime, a good heavy dose of lime will turn your blue hydrangeas red or pink, and a good dose of the bluing material, which is acidic material, will turn your hydrangeas blue. So you can control it. But first of all, you look by looking around your district, you can see what colour your hydrangeas want to go, and then you can use the right stuff and you can control the colour. So that's the big myth about hydrangeas, is that you've got blue ones and pink ones and things like that. And basically you haven't. They're all just affected by the pH. Now, one of the other things about hydrangeas, and this more applies that we're going to talk about different sorts of hydrangea, but the main hydrangea out there that most people know and grow is called a microphylla hydrangea. Now your microphylla has a nice big roundish leaf like that. The leaf is sort of big and round, and it has a big head. They're microphylla hydrangeas that are up on the screen right now. Now, what's interesting about your microphyllas is that when they first flower, they're going to start flowering maybe end of October, beginning of November, they're going to start flowering. When the flowers come, they're really fresh, clean, bright colours. And as they go through and as they go through the season, if you keep them well watered and look after them, what you'll find is that the hydrangeas turn really interesting colours, and people in the trade call that the autumn colour hydrangea flowers, and that's them up on the screen now, and you get all beautiful shades of colours there. Fabulous shades that you just don't get in springtime. Now the interesting thing about these autumn colour ones, if you cut them at exactly the right time, when they're starting to sort of thin and dry and before they start to rot and it gets sort of too cold and wet, if you cut them and hang them, they dry, and then those hydrangeas last for years. So then people make arrangements in their houses, and those autumn coloured hydrangeas, which are superb, beautiful sort of autumny colours, well then your autumn colour hydrangeas will last for years as a dried flower, cut at exactly the right time and hung and dried in a nice sort of dry, airy spot. When I was a kid, we had a house up on poles up in the hills, and we would hang them under the house because it was quite breezy and windy there, and they would dry, and then they could be used as flower arrangements that would last for years. Or sometimes people cut those dried hydrangeas and use them as they've got no smell to them, but they use them as the filler in the potpourri, and it gives it some colour and texture and some volume. and then the fragrant flowers mix through. So there's quite a few uses for your autumn colour hydrangeas, and it's a good use of the flowers, and it's a good little trick that most people who are just getting into hydrangeas don't realise that they can turn them by picking them at the right time in autumn, as they dry out a bit and before they start to rot. You pick them, hang them in a nice open airy dry spot and let them dry and turn them into a beautiful dried flower, and those beautiful autumny tones are preserved and last for years as a dried flower. Now,
and for anyone asking any questions, just a reminder that we are going to dedicate time at the end of the live to answer them. So stick around and we're going to answer it then, but we're going to keep going with the lecture.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that hydrangea can be used for is as a pot plant. And what a lot of people don't know is most people have seen hydrangeas, 1.5, 1.8, 1.6 metres tall in the garden, but there are smaller growing hydrangea varieties, and I'll be dealing with that a little bit later. But particularly your small ones are suited to is as a pot plant. And hydrangeas, plenty of water, plenty of fertiliser, and they make a beautiful flowering plant. And I guess there's one other sort of very technical thing that I should come across right at this point. Like if you're whether you're growing them in the pot plant or growing them in the garden, there's a trick to pruning to get flowers. And what it is I'll often get somebody say, look, I bought a hydrangea 3 years ago, and I'll water it and I'll fertilise it and I'll look after it, and the damn thing never flowers. It just never, ever, ever flowers. Well, what they're admitting to me is that they don't know how to prune their hydrangeas. Now, what it is, I might draw a little picture here for you. Can I draw a picture and show it?
Sure, go right ahead.
So, what I'll do is I'll hold this up. So here's your hydrangea grows new shoots like that.
Lift up the paper just a little bit.
Yeah.
Yep.
Your hydrangea grows new shoots like that, and then it has flowers on some of those shoots and like that, and those flowers die. Well, those dead flowers are not going to flower again next year. So if you're going through and say this was your hydrangea, and then you had these other shoots like this that didn't have dead flowers on them, what you can do is you can go through and you cut your dead flowers off like that, and you might even cut one or two of the other flowers off, but you've got to leave whole shoots. And that if you leave a whole shoot with a proper end on it, a proper little bud on the end, and it's a 1 year old shoot, untouched, that is the one that's going to flower next year. So what you do is that if you want to keep your hydrangea trimmed, you'd only trim off a third or half of the shoots, and you pick those shoots that are nice, healthy young shoots that haven't flowered, and they're the ones that are going to produce the flowers for next year. And
just hold it up a little bit higher just for the camera there. Yep.
Yeah.
Great.
So that's it there. So the ones that have got the dead flowers on them, they're the ones that you might cut back in half, and you might even cut back some of the other ones, but you leave those 1 year old shoots, and they've got to be untouched 1 year old shoots, and they're the ones that are going to deliver up next year's flowers. So the person that goes through, some people want to cut them and they'll go through and cut the whole lot off like that, they cut them all off there, and they're the people, and then they shoot up and they're green and vigorous, but they won't flower because the shoots are too young. You've got to keep 1 year old shoots on your hydrangea every year to get flowers.
Amazing. Yeah, very informative.
Yeah. So that's an important fact about your hydrangea. So actually, I was just going to say when I was my dad was an accountant, but he bought a flower farm.
Do we want to just quickly just show that drawing just again?
Yeah.
Just because it was hard to see. So just quickly show it again. All right.
Yeah. So here, you got that
There
up
we
there?
go.
Okay. Yeah. Right. So I've got it. So what it is, here's a typical old hydrangea, and it's winter. It's dropped its leaves, and we've got some dead flowers. You get sort of some remains of the dead flowers on a couple of these shoots here. Now they're the ones that you might trim back like that. And you trim those back, and you might even trim back, and then you've got these other nice 1 year old shoots. They've been growing all since springtime. They're 1 year old shoots, and they haven't got a dead flower, and they haven't got a flower on them. They're the ones you've got to leave behind, because they're the ones that are going to flower next year. So what you can do with your hydrangea to keep it down in size is go through and cut off the ones that have flowered, and maybe one or two of the ones that haven't flowered, but basically leave plenty of nice 1-year-old shoots there that haven't flowered, and they're the ones that are going to flower next spring for you.
Amazing. All right.
And if you cut the whole thing off, you're going to have no flowers. You're going to have lots of lush growth, but no flowers.
Great. All right, let's move on to the next part.
Actually, I was going to tell a little Hydrangeas story. Is I can remember when I was a child, my dad was an accountant, and he bought a flower farm, didn't know much about flowers, but down by the creek we had about a ½ acre of beautiful hydrangeas. And my dad would pick them to sell, and he'd wait till they autumn coloured. People back in those days used to love buying the autumn coloured ones. He'd pick the autumn colour ones and bunch all different colours together, make beautiful bunches of them. And what I remember particularly was being a little kid, and we'd be down there and just wearing a pair of shorts, and it was sort of real hot. And we used to we'd pick ourselves. There was one hydrangea there that had a flower that was probably about 40 centimetres round, beautiful big. It was a macrophylla hydrangea. We used to cut them, and they'd be our umbrellas, and we'd be running around in the hydrangea, in my parents' hydrangea farm with umbrella hydrangea flowers. But I remember how beautiful the autumn coloured ones were, and what we'd do is we'd carry the big bunches up the hill and send them off to the flower market. So that's my memory of hydrangeas, and we had a beautiful patch of hydrangeas by the creek, and looking across them all in flower used to be really, really lovely. So now what we're going to do now is talk about some of the different types. That we talked about some of the technical issues with hydrangeas, but now let's talk about some of the different sorts. First of all, there's some small growing hydrangeas, and the first one is Minami or Minami, and these ones are all available from us, and this one could be pink or blue depending on the pH of the potting mix you're using. But this is great if you just want if you've got a small garden bed and you want a small one in a small garden bed, or if you want to grow one in a pot and you don't want to get too big. And what I've noticed with these small ones, you don't prune them much, and because you don't prune them much, you get lots and lots of flowers. Now another beautiful small one is Miss Sayori. And Miss Sayori is fabulous because it has multicoloured flowers, and it's a double flower. It's quite unusual, really, really pretty, and it's a compact variety. So it's one you could grow in the pot, grow under the veranda, grow it in a smaller garden bed. And then another really beautiful one. I remember my dad was really thrilled when he got this variety. It's called Bicolour, and Bicolour is a compact one, and you can see here that you can have it as a pink or white or a blue one. That's all depending on your pH, and it's part of the Tea Time Rose collection. Now your Bicolour has that two-coloured flower, and it's beautiful. And again, that'll do that autumn tonings in autumn, but in spring, lovely, bright, fresh Bicolour. And it's not a real tiny miniature, but it's a compact. So it'd be great for a small garden bed or great for a pot, and it's a microphylla hydrangea, which means that it would not want to be in too much hot sun, so you keep that out of the hot sun. And then the next one is peewee. Now peewee, I'm going to talk about this separately, but peewee is an oak leaf hydrangea, and your oak leaf hydrangea have that very interesting leaf that you can see in the picture there. And they also have an elongated white flower, so no colour in the flower, but they have a very special feature, and that is that they hold, where other hydrangeas lose their leaves in the winter, they hold their leaves through the winter and do a beautiful autumn colour in the winter. But we'll look at that autumn colour a bit later. And then you've got another one, another little tiny one, peewee is going to be a little bit higher than knee high when it's fully grown. Now we're going to look at one called Munchkin, which is even. It's like that, but it's even more miniature. So it's a very, very low growing one, and this would be good if you did a sort of a wood. It's probably not one that I'd put in a pot, but it's kind of a little bit of an acquired taste. But it's the sort of thing, if you were doing a woodland garden, it'd be a very unusual and beautiful thing to put, say, in a woodland garden mixed with other plants. Things like your New Zealand rock lilies or Japanese anemones or something like that. Sort of great for that shady woodland garden. Now, moving on, we'll go back to the oak leaf hydrangea. And your oak leaf hydrangeas, although they don't have the most spectacular flower of all your hydrangeas, they're the #1 hydrangea that I use in my garden designs. I just about every day I do one garden design where I put oak leaf hydrangeas in, and the reason why is I remember them in my mum's garden, beautiful white flowers, but the thing with them is that they're lower growing than most hydrangeas. They don't grow as tall as most hydrangeas. There's different varieties of them, and we'll go through the different varieties in a minute, or a couple of different varieties, but they don't grow as tall, and they have that much more interesting leaf. They're more sun hardy, they require a little bit less water, and then their big selling point is that most hydrangeas the leaves don't really autumn colour, they just sort of rot off them, and then the leaves fall off, and they look like well, if you said they looked ordinary, you'd be being kind. The hydrangeas don't look so good in the winter, whereas your oak leaf does. Your oak leaf, and we're looking now at sort of an oak leaf going into autumn colour. You get beautiful burgundies and beautiful colours in your oak leaf. And with those beautiful colours, they stay right through the winter. I remember my mum had big patches of them in her garden, and they'd stay right through the winter. And then the new spring foliage would push off that old foliage, and suddenly they'd be bright green and fresh and new. And then the next thing you'd have a crop of white flowers. So oak leaf hydrangeas, although they're less spectacular than some of the other hydrangeas I'm going to show you, your oak leaf hydrangea is one of the best hydrangeas to put in the garden when you look at it through the overall season, and one of the nicest ones that we do is called Pirin Snow, and Pirin Snow is quite compact, fabulous white flowers, really pretty oak leaf hydrangea, and not too tall. And then you've got your plain, just your oak leaf hydrangea, and your oak leaf hydrangea grows sort of a bit higher than waist height, has the nice autumn colour, lovely white flowers, and beautiful green, interesting oak leaves in summer. Now, the next hydrangeas I want to talk about are your paniculata varieties.
I don't think we have. Is it this one?
No, that's a macrophylla, that one there.
I don't think we got those.
I like Sunday Phrase.
Oh, Sunday Phrase, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so Sunday Phrase is a paniculata. Now paniculatas, that's how I was going to put you in on some of the tricks of the trade. Like I've told you how you can have a hydrangea that'll keep its leaves, and also your oak leaf requires less water and will withstand more sun. Well, this one here, Sunday Phrase, I've seen it grown in full hot sun, and as long as you keep the water up to it, those flowers flower in November, late October, early November. They'll flower right through to May, and they'll stay out there in the full hot sun. So when I'm doing a garden design and where people want Hampton's garden designs and they've got a hot sunny front, what I'd be using this Sunday Phrase, or the next one I'm going to show you, which is Candlelight. And they have a beautiful leaf. They're a beautiful looking plant, a different colour, a different sort of leaf, and they have beautiful flowers. And the other thing, I wonder if we could squeeze in the photo of the hydrangea tree now. Yeah. It hasn't really caught on in Australia, but in America, what's really popular is your hydrangea tree. Now, your hydrangea tree, right now, if you wanted a hydrangea tree, we've got one or two out the back in the nursery, but generally speaking, you'd have to make it yourself. And you can do that. What you'd do, how you'd make a hydrangea tree is you'd plant one of these and you'd do a hydrangea paniculata. And my friend who's an expert on hydrangeas reckons that the best one is either the Sunday Phrase or the Candlelight, and he thinks Candlelight's probably slightly better than Sunday Phrase for making your hydrangea tree. But what you do is you'd grow one out in the garden for a year. Then when winter came, you'd chop it off at ground level, and then you'd prune it back to, and when it's shot away in spring, you prune it back to one shoot. You give it lots of water and fertiliser, even a bit of liquid fertiliser, and you'd run that one shoot up a post. And when it got up to, 3, 4, 5 foot, whatever height you wanted, you'd then nip the top out of it, and then it would bush up on top, and then you'd gradually prune it and let it turn into a beautiful ball on a stick, and you'd have yourself a Hydrangeas tree. And if you were to go visit the Hamptons, which is where the garden and house style that's so popular at the moment, you'd actually find that the Hydrangeas tree is something you'd find in almost every Hamptons garden. So, and in the future you'll find there's growers actually working on producing Hydrangeas trees, which you'll be able to plant in your garden. But right now, if you want a Hydrangeas, I've got 1 or 2 or 3 of them out the back, but right now if you want Hydrangeas trees, you've really got to set about making it yourself. And it's not too hard to do, to make your very own Hydrangeas tree, and they will make a fabulous feature. And by using your paniculata hydrangea and plenty of water, you can actually grow it in quite a bit of sun. So that's your paniculata hydrangea. And then there's one more in the paniculata range that we stock, which is called Tardiva. And Tardiva is a Japanese one, and it's beautiful leaf, beautiful flowers, and really, really fabulous show, very hardy, easy to grow one. So, and that would be another good one for growing your own Hydrangeas tree. In fact, I think the Hydrangeas trees that I've got in stock at the moment are actually Tardivas. Now, we're getting to the end now, and what I was going to talk about was one of the most fabulous hydrangeas of all. Beautiful foliage, beautiful flowers. It's called Annabelle. So there's your Annabelle there. Now Annabelle has a different leaf and a different coloured leaf, and those amazing round white balls of flower. Absolutely incredible show. And if you've got a multi-million-dollar property and you've got a bit of a spot with morning sun, afternoon shade, and you want it to look like wow, just plant yourself 10 or 20 or 30 of them. They're the hydrangea that probably most lends itself, doesn't want to be in the hot afternoon sun, but would most lend itself to mass planting and creating an absolute wow display. And they look good even when they're not flowering because of their beautiful foliage. So that is Annabelle. And then there's one other hydrangea worth considering if you learn. And we have an evergreen hydrangea. And the evergreen hydrangea has a blue flower. It's not as showy as your other hydrangea, but if you have a woodland garden or you want something with a bit of subtlety, a bit of interest, have a look at an evergreen hydrangea. It has a blue or a pink flower depending on the pH, but there is an actual evergreen hydrangea on our website, and it's a pretty and it's an interesting thing, great for a woodland garden, not as showy as something like your Annabelle. Your Annabelle is your probably the head of the wow magnolias. Probably.
What's the name of that evergreen hydrangea, Chris?
We just call it evergreen.
Oh, well, that's appropriate.
Yeah. It does have a fancy Latin name, but it keeps lovely green foliage all year round, and has a kind of a flower more like the oak leaf, more like a sort of an interesting and nice flower, but not a kind of a wow mass display flower like the Annabelle that we've got up on the screen here. So I'm wondering, do we have any questions on hydrangea?
We have so many questions, so we're going to get right into it, Chris. First question is from Cedar Creek Gardener, asking for any kid/pet safe alternatives to hydrangea.
I've always had lots of pets and lots of hydrangeas, never had a problem with them with the pets, but I believe that if they consume them, they're not so good. There's really nothing else that really does the job of a hydrangea. But I've had cats and dogs and all sorts of things living amongst my hydrangeas and never had a problem with them. And I've handled mountains of hydrangeas, with my skin and my hands and things like that. Never had a problem with that either. I've handled them as a cut flower. And working with my dad, we'd propagate 30 or 40,000 of them every year and chop them up and handle them.
Are they poisonous to cats or dogs or anything at all?
I think they might be, but like what you find is like there's rhododendrons and there's all sorts of things poisonous to cats and dogs, and but I've never had a problem with a cat or a dog being worried by those things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Great.
it might only be if you had a kind of a very neurotic cat that would eat anything, you know?
Yeah, fair. All right, next question is from Taylor. Are hydrangeas good in North Queensland?
Gee, I don't know. You should try a few and let me know. I reckon certainly around Brisbane and that'd be fine. But North Queensland is a different ball game. They do, and there would be places like up on the tablelands you would certainly grow hydrangea. Like I think probably the best spot in Australia to grow them would be on the tablelands up in North Queensland. But down on the coast, I reckon they might rot a bit. But it'd be interesting to try. Send me your details. I'll post you up a couple for free, and you can let me know.
All right,
Yeah,
Taylor,
we'll
if
find
you
out.
want to message us, just DM us on TikTok your details, and we can send you some hydrangeas because, we'd love to have a little experiment
You
and
could
see.
be a North Queensland hydrangea researcher.
Exactly. We are hiring right now. For anyone interested in a job, you should go check out the article on our website.
Yeah.
Bit of a good segue. Taylor also wants to know if we sell Annabelles.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. And someone wants to know where your dress is, Chris. They should probably go check out some of our recent videos.
Yeah.
we've been the tutu's back, guys. You should go check out our recent videos. All right, let's see. Next question is
Actually, if you come to my next live, I'll be wearing the pink tutu.
oh, okay, an extra treat. All right. Someone says, oh, well, here is a little bit of a weigh in on the whole Queensland thing. Someone says they've tried to grow hydrangeas in Queensland and always failed. What's some Queensland specific advice I can take on?
Well, whereabouts in Queensland?
They don't say.
Look, the main thing would be shade, because Queensland, very hot sun, shade and plenty of water would be the first thing that you would use. And my worry, once you get, if you coastal North Queensland, I reckon if you went up onto the tablelands, you'd probably find the best spot in Australia for growing hydrangea. Like, there's a whole different world up on the tablelands, but down on the coast, I think it might be a bit hot and wet. And we'll send some up there. And what I'll do is I'll send up a couple of different types of hydrangea, and we'll see if there's any type that works. Like we could try the evergreen up there, and just see what works.
Yeah, and we'll have Taylor, our hydrangea expert, report back to us hopefully. Next question is from Rachel. What can you recommend for my parents? I mean, it depends what your parents like, Rachel.
Probably like the most versatile one would be to go for some of those dwarf variety ones, and then your parents can choose between whether they're going to put them in a pot or put them in the garden, and they won't, and they'll just, they can just occupy a little corner in the garden or a little pot. So I'd look at some of the smaller growing varieties.
Yep, perfect. All right, next one. Okay, from Talia. We moved into a rental with a horribly chop-backed hydrangea. How can we help it? And they're in Dandenong North in Victoria.
Okay. Make sure it's in like morning sun, afternoon shade, or a bit of shade. Keep it. Put some fertilizer on it, a bit of chicken manure or some Osmocote, whatever you've got. They love a bit of fertilizer. Cultivate around the base. They love a bit of loose cultivated soil around the base. And then as you move into the warmer weather, really keep it well watered, and hopefully it'll bush up and flower and do its thing. And the other trick would be, if it does grow a lot this year and doesn't flower much, that's because it's been cut too hard, and leave all that growth on it, keep it watered and fertilised, and then you have a beautiful crop of flowers next year.
Amazing. Next question is from Peter. I've heard some type of hydrangeas flower off new wood or old wood. Does this have implications in how you would prune/care for maximal flowers? Do you know which types flower off old/new?
Okay, so your paniculata varieties, which we discussed, which is like your Sunday Fraise, and your Candlelight and your Tardiva, all flower on new wood. So you can cut them in hacking the many old way you like in the winter, and they'll shoot back and flower in springtime. Whereas your microfillers, which are basically your ball type hydrangea, the one you're looking at the screen now, they flower on 1-year-old wood, so they need that specialist pruning.
All right. And then Lisa wants us to show what white hydrangeas we have in stock right now. Do you know what we have?
Look, what we have right now is we do have Annabelles, and we have a white macrophylla, and we have oak leaf, and there could be a couple of peewees out there. We could scratch around and find a couple of peewees. So that gives you 4 different white ones, and that's what I know of. There might be other ones. What I'll be doing over the next week is really update the reason why I did this talk was I wanted to brush myself up on hydrangeas. Then I was going to scout around all my suppliers and stock right up with hydrangeas next week and put out a written thing on hydrangeas with a page on hydrangeas and more information on hydrangeas. This is my sort of get back into hydrangeas time.
Yeah, incredible. So yeah, we will have an article be coming out maybe around next week, maybe the week after, just depends on our schedule, and it will cover everything that we have today, so you can just read kind of at your own leisure and get all those names. Sometimes it's kind of tricky knowing how to spell it when it's just said verbally.
Yeah. But and the thing is, if you rang up and spoke to one of the staff, they could help you with that too, or pop in and see us. But I know I bought 100 Annabelles the other day. I was out of Annabelles, and Annabelles are my favourite white.
Amazing. All right, and next question is from Peter again. What are the best times to take cuttings and propagate?
Right, okay. I reckon probably for the home, just thinking about that, for the home gardener, it's your hardwood cutting, and your hardwood cutting is best taken just before the equinox, and the trick to it is if you look at your hydrangea, it has like a hollow stem, and then after an interval it has what we call a node. And what you need is a node on the bottom because the roots come out of the node, and then you have a node probably just above the ground, and then you have a node at the top. And that node, so basically your cutting that you want, I'll draw a picture, has got
Oh, we're getting another little drawing.
Yeah.
Just give us a moment.
We'll make you bigger on this.
So
yeah.
So this is your cutting here. You do it just before the equinox, which is sort of late June. And what you do is you'd cut it off maybe half an inch below the bottom node, and then you'd have a node here, and that node here is probably just going to sit just above where you put into your, and you go into a nice light potting mix, and you have it, and you can use a little bit of hormone if you like, or they will strike without a bit of hormone, but you'd use a mild hormone if you did use one. But there's this node here is where your roots are going to come, and this node here and this node here is where your new shoots are going to come.
Yeah.
And so nice and early, but it's very important to have those nodes in the right spot.
Yeah, amazing. And I just want to note, I am just asking, I am just asking all the hydrangea specific questions. I am seeing that there are some other questions coming up, but just because we have limited time, I'm only focusing on the hydrangea questions. But we do a live Q&A every Monday, 12 p.m. on whatever platform you are on now. So anyone who's asking other questions, keep those questions saved and come to our Monday Live, and that's where we answer any and all gardening plant questions. But I just want to focus specifically on hydrangeas because that's what we are covering today, and we do have quite a few questions there. So yeah, sorry if for anyone who isn't asking hydrangea questions, please come to our Monday Live or call us up. All right, next question I'm going to ask is from Sally, just chatting about the pruning. So you leave the stems that are not flowered, is what she's asking when pruning?
Yes, that's right, yeah. And 1-year-old stems that have not flowered, and they're the ones that are going to flower next year.
Yeah. And also Sally would like to know, do they grow in full shade?
Yes.
Yeah, great. All right, and then Lisa would like to know how to keep her white hydrangeas white as they tend to turn green.
That's what happens. Yeah, what happens is that we talked about the autumn colouring of hydrangeas, and basically your white hydrangeas, your paniculata ones tend to turn reds, pinks. With your paniculatas you normally start off white, and then a soft pink blush will come in, and then that pink blush will get a little stronger, and then some of them will actually end up red by the end of the season. And with your pure whites, they tend to end up a sort of a pale green by the end of the season. So, and there's nothing, unless you can control time, there's really not much you can do about it.
Or use some white paint or something. All right.
Yeah.
So I think we just have one more
Probably
question.
the trick is just really enjoy them while they're white.
Yeah, true. Just like you only have spring blossoms for a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
You've got to enjoy it for that time. All right. So lucky last question for today is from Ken. How do you keep the newly planted plants safe during recent season?
Oh, look, really, there's hydrangeas are tough. They get beat up and miserable looking in the cold. And like I hide most of the hydrangeas in the nursery right out the back in the depths of winter because they look terrible. And then they started, all my hydrangeas started to shoot about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And what were terrible looking hydrangeas are now starting to look good again. They're sort of reviving themselves. So really they can take the frost and the harsh winter conditions really, really well. They look terrible, but they bounce back in springtime, and that's what all my hydrangeas are doing. And as I've been going around to my various growers, I'm seeing the same thing.
Incredible. And just a last little update on our hydrangea researcher specialist, Taylor. She is in, so she's near Townsville in a cane veggie farming town, and she's very excited to give them a go and let us know.
Well, we'll be interested to find out. And next year we'll do another special on hydrangeas, so we'll be able to talk about how they grow in Townsville.
Yeah, very exciting. So yeah, everyone follow us on our socials and we'll keep you updated with how that goes.
What we'll need is an address, and we'll send a little
Yeah.
mix
But we'll get her
batch
to, we'll get them to send that to us privately, obviously, and sort all of that out. But in the meantime, I hope everyone has a lovely rest of their Tuesday. Be sure to come to our live Q&A on Monday, and also next week we are doing a live about tomatoes.
Yeah.
Very exciting, and that's going to be Tuesday 12 as well. Yeah, so if you want to plant tomatoes or you love tomatoes, you should definitely come to our live at Tuesday 12 p.m. Tell your family, tell your friends, and yeah, let's keep learning about gardening.
You'll be able to learn the tricks of the trade of growing tomatoes and how to get tomatoes quick, and how to get big tomatoes, and how to get bountiful lots of tomatoes, and how to get amazing exotic tomatoes that'll thrill your friends.
Yeah, incredible. All right. Bye, everyone.